People mistook the single father for a CEO and the woman accompanying him for a married couple. She didn't deny it at all, simply smiling instead. But why did people make that assumption? And why did she choose to respond with only a smile? What could make such a simple misunderstanding feel so intriguing? Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. We're so glad to have you here for another captivating story filled with unexpected moments and emotions. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss our next story. Thank you so much for being here and supporting the channel. Your support means everything to us. Now, tell us in the comments, how would you react if people mistook you and someone beside you for a married couple? With that in mind, let's step into the beginning of this unforgettable story. The borrowed jacket still smelled of sawdust when Ethan found the owner's business card sewn inside the pocket. "Don't touch the cuffs." "I won't." "And no barbecue sauce." Lily stood on a kitchen chair, tightening a navy tie she had learned to knot from a library book. Under the yellow stove light, her 9-year-old fingers looked impossibly small against the broad collar of the charcoal suit. The refrigerator hummed behind them, crowded with overdue notices and her crayon drawing of the workshop Ethan was trying to save. It was the only suit his neighbor, Frank, owned. The sleeves stopped half an inch above Ethan's wrists, and a pale crease marked where another man's shoulders had shaped the wool for 20 years. Still, it covered the faded work shirt beneath it, and from across a ballroom, perhaps no one would notice the difference. "You look important," Lily said. Ethan glanced at the cracked mirror over the sink. "I need to look prepared." "That's not the same thing." The wall clock clicked through the silence. On the counter lay his conference invitation, a visitor badge, and the presentation that could keep 12 apprentices employed through winter. The Harbor Renewal Summit had given him exactly 3 minutes to persuade a private donor to fund the community repair shop. 3 minutes between polished executives who measured success in towers, acquisitions, and numbers Ethan had only seen printed on bank advertisements. His phone vibrated. Final notice flashed above a message from the landlord. Payment by Friday, or the workshop locks would be changed. Ethan turned the screen face down before Lily could read it. "Dad, just a reminder." "About the shop?" He slid the business card from the borrowed pocket and placed it beside the invitation. Frank Mercer, Regional Vice President. The embossed letters caught the light like a warning. Wearing the suit was one thing. Carrying another man's title into a room built on titles was something else. Ethan left the card on the counter. "About doing this honestly," he said. 40 minutes later, the downtown hotel rose above the street in sheets of blue glass. Valets moved beneath heated lamps while black sedans whispered over wet pavement. Inside, the lobby smelled of cedar polish and expensive coffee. Crystal fixtures scattered white light across the marble floor. Ethan paused at the revolving door, feeling the loose heel of his repaired dress shoe flex beneath him. His visitor badge had folded in his pocket. Before he could straighten it, a conference attendant spotted the tailored jacket, the leather portfolio, and the calm way he held himself despite the noise. "Good evening, sir." "Executive reception?" Ethan opened his mouth. A silver-haired guest behind the attendant glanced at the suit, then at Ethan's weathered hands. "New manufacturing CEO, I assume." "No, There you are." The woman approaching wore a simple black dress beneath a cream coat, with no visible logo and no entourage. Claire stopped beside Ethan as though the place had been reserved for her, her gaze moving from his frayed cuff to the visitor badge half hidden in his hand. She had heard the mistake. He could tell by the faint lift of one eyebrow. "Claire Bennett," she said, offering her hand. Her palm was warm, her grip steady. "Ethan Cole." "Which company?" the silver-haired guest asked. Ethan drew breath to answer, but an usher unclipped the velvet rope. "Mr. Cole, M.S. Bennett, right this way." The rope closed behind them before Ethan could correct anyone. Ahead, gold lights spilled through the ballroom doors, carrying violin music, chilled air, and the soft clink of champagne glasses. Ethan stopped. "They think I'm someone else." Claire looked at the borrowed shoulders of his jacket, then at the calluses no suit could hide. "Then tell them who you are when it matters." She stepped through the doorway. leaving him with a choice worth more than the suit. Retreat with his dignity untouched, or enter a room already determined to give him another man's name. Then Claire glanced back and quietly held the door open for him. Gold light moved across the polished floor as the ballroom doors swung wider, and a violin note trembled above the cold breath of the air conditioning. 2 steps inside, Ethan slowed again. Claire released the brass handle, crossed back to him, and slipped her hand through the bend of his arm. "Walk with me. You don't have to do that." "I know." Her choice drew them into the current of black tuxedos and jeweled gowns. Nearby conversations softened. A photographer's shutter clicked twice, capturing the composed woman in the black dress and cream coat beside the man in the charcoal suit. No one saw borrowed wool or scarred knuckles. They saw belonging. An event coordinator hurried toward them, heels ticking against marble. "Mr. Cole, your wife is welcome at the executive reception." Ethan's arms stiffened beneath Claire's fingers. "She isn't. The terrace is this way." The coordinator continued, already turning. Claire could have corrected her. Instead, her thumb rested lightly against Ethan's sleeve, and a small, untroubled smile touched her mouth. She denied nothing. The silence was answer enough for everyone watching. Ethan guided her away from the coordinator and stopped beneath a chandelier where warm crystal light caught the silver threads at his cuffs. "Why did you let her believe that?" "Because 5 minutes ago, they looked through you." Claire glanced toward the executive tables, where name cards stood beside untouched champagne. "Now they're trying to decide how important you are." "I'm not important." 12 apprentices might disagree. His eyes sharpened. "I never told you about them." Claire nodded toward the folded application protruding half an inch from his inner pocket. Across its top, in Ethan's careful block letters, were the words Cole Community Repair Shop, 12 jobs at risk. She had recognized the truth not from a title, but from the way he kept one protective hand near that paper whenever someone brushed past. "You came here carrying other people's futures," she said. "That tells me more than a business card." A server offered champagne. Ethan chose sparkling water. Claire did the same. The glass was cold against his calloused palm, and somewhere near the stage a microphone gave a low electric hum. "If they ask directly," he said, "I tell them everything." "Good. And if standing beside me costs you something?" For the first time, her gaze shifted toward a cluster of conference delegates watching them. One lifted a phone. Another whispered behind a program. Claire removed her cream coat, placed it over the back of a chair, and stepped closer rather than away. "Then let the cost belong to me." She reached up and straightened the knot Lily had tied, preserving its slight, imperfect tilt. The gesture sent another camera shutter fluttering through the room. Ethan looked at her hand, then at the smile she made no effort to hide. "They're going to keep assuming." "Let them watch what you do," Claire replied. "Then make them ashamed they cared what you were called." Across the ballroom, the summit director raised a clipboard and scanned the room. "We need one final speaker for the renewal fund," he announced. Before Ethan could move, Claire lifted her hand. "Ethan Cole has a project worth hearing." Every face turned toward the man they believed had arrived with his wife, and the director pointed toward the stage. "Then Mr. Cole has 3 minutes to prove it." A crystal glass struck the marble floor with a sharp crack, and dark red wine spread beneath the banquet tables like ink. Silverware stopped clinking. Beneath the warm chandelier light, a young server dropped to her knees, pressing a white napkin into the stain while the room filled with the bitter scent of Cabernet and lemon polish. "Do you understand what that carpet costs?" her manager snapped. "I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix incompetence." "It was my fault," Ethan said. The stage stood barely 30 feet away. Beside it, the summit director checked his watch while a donor Ethan had spent 6 months trying to reach waited near the stairs. Ethan's 3 minutes were close enough to touch, yet he stepped away from Claire and crossed the ballroom. The manager looked over the charcoal suit, the imperfect tie, and the polished shoes, then softened his voice. "Sir, please. My staff will handle this." Ethan picked up the fallen tray. Cold wine soaked through his cuff. I backed into her. The server stared at him. She knew he had been several feet away. "No, sir, you didn't." "Then let's say I should have been paying attention." A camera clicked behind him. The manager's courteous mask tightened. With respect, Mr. Cole, this is an employee matter. Humiliation stopped being private when you made it loud enough for the ballroom to hear. The air conditioning whispered through the ceiling vents. Somewhere near the stage, a microphone gave a low electronic hum, and the summit director raised 2 fingers toward Ethan. 2 minutes until the final presentation slot would be reassigned. The manager glanced toward the guests watching them. If you caused the spill, perhaps you should cover the cleaning charge. Send it to me. To your company? Ethan set the tray on the table. The borrowed jacket pulled across his shoulders, and for the first time, the image others had built around him began to crack. I run a community repair shop. A few nearby voices fell silent. Not a corporation? No. Then why are you in the executive section? Ethan looked toward the stage, then down at the server's trembling hands. 12 apprentices needed him to reach that microphone. Lily's crooked knot rested against his throat, still exactly as she had made it. Because someone opened a door, he said. That didn't give me permission to watch you close one on her. The manager reached for the server's badge. You're done for the evening. Claire moved before Ethan could. She did not stand behind him, explain his presence, or shield him with another convenient misunderstanding. Her black dress cut a quiet line through the gold light as she stepped beside the kneeling server and held out her hand. Stand up, Claire said. The young woman rose slowly. Ma'am, this doesn't concern you, the manager warned. Claire turned so the investors, board members, and cameras could see her face. You corrected her in public. You will apologize in public. I won't be instructed by a guest. Claire's smile remained, but its warmth had vanished. Then listen as a man whose dignity you respected while you thought he was wealthy tells you that respect cannot depend on a business card. The manager's eyes moved across the watching room. No one rescued him from the silence. I apologize, he said at last. Claire waited. To her. His jaw tightened. I apologize, Ms. Ramirez. The server released a breath and took the hand Claire offered. Behind them, the summit director lowered his clipboard. Mr. Cole, he called, his voice carrying through the ballroom. Your presentation window has closed. Ethan's fingers settled over Lily's knot as the donor turned away from the stage. Then the manager looked at Ethan's wet cuff and asked the question, now moving through every whisper in the room. If you're not a CEO, Mr. Cole, who exactly have we admitted? A dozen phones began vibrating against white tablecloths, their screens glowing beneath the amber chandeliers. The ballroom smelled of spilled Cabernet and hot linen as a photograph raced from one account to another. Claire in black, her arm linked with Ethan's, both framed beneath the executive entrance sign. Someone had captioned it, Mystery CEO Couple Takes Over Harbor Summit. Another post called them, the husband and wife investors no one can identify. Ethan watched the shares multiply on a delegate screen. That isn't true. Truth moves slower than a photograph, Claire said. Then we correct it. We will. Her phone rang before either of them could move. Claire stepped toward the tall windows, where cold air leaked through the brass frames and traffic hissed 14 floors below. She answered on speaker only long enough for Ethan to hear a clipped male voice. Tell me the man beside you has been verified. His name is Ethan Cole. That wasn't my question. It should have been. A pause followed, filled by the low hum of the ventilation system. The caller told Claire that her fund's largest pending transaction depended on discretion, stability, and the confidence of partners who did not enjoy surprises. Images suggesting she had secretly married an unidentified man were already circulating among the deal committee. If she did not separate herself from Ethan immediately, the signing could be suspended. Claire looked through the glass at her own reflection beside his. Send me the committee's concerns in writing. Claire, walk away from him. Now. No, she ended the call herself. Across the ballroom, the banquet manager had found a different kind of weapon. He spoke quietly to the summit director, then pointed toward Ethan's borrowed charcoal suit, the executive entrance, and the wet cuff darkened by wine. The director approached with 2 security staff members, his clipboard pressed flat against his chest. Mr. Cole, your registration lists a community repair shop. That's correct. Yet you entered through the executive doors, and allowed attendees to believe otherwise. Ethan's thumb brushed Lily's uneven tie knot, still exactly as she had left it. I corrected the record when I was asked. After receiving executive access, I never claimed a title I didn't have. The director's pen clicked once. Around them, silverware stopped touching china. Intent is difficult to establish, he said. Appearance is not. Ethan reached into his inner pocket and unfolded the repair shop's funding application. Grease had stained one corner long before the charcoal suit had ever covered it. He held it out, but the director did not take it. Your 3-minute window is permanently withdrawn. Your project will not be considered at this summit. The paper remained between them for one breath, then two. Ethan lowered it carefully. 12 apprentices would open the shop Monday believing he had brought back a future. Now he had nothing but a borrowed suit, a missed donor, and a public accusation traveling faster than any explanation. Claire crossed the carpet and stopped at his side again. Camera shutters clicked from the rear of the room. Move away from him. Her partner's message flashed across her screen. Protect the fund. Claire turned the phone face down on a serving tray. The director glanced between them. Ms. Bennett, for your own sake, you should clarify that this man has no connection to you. Claire's hand settled lightly around Ethan's arm. Not as a performance now, but as an answer. You have taken his presentation, she said. You will not take his dignity. Then another message illuminated her screen. Separate from Cole before 6 p.m., or the deal is off. The ballroom clock read 5:42. When Ethan quietly asked her to leave before he cost her everything, Claire did not smile. 18 minutes, she said. That is how long they have to decide what kind of people they are. The brass hands of the ballroom clock moved toward 5:43, each click barely audible beneath the hum of chandeliers and the soft clatter of silverware being cleared. Cold air spilled from a ceiling vent, carrying the sharp scent of wine and lemon polish across the carpet. Ethan loosened Claire's hand from his arm. You've already done enough. That isn't your decision. It is if my silence is keeping you here. The imperfect knot Lily had made pressed crookedly against his collar. Ethan left it untouched, then walked toward the small media platform near the ballroom entrance, where the summit director was speaking quietly with 2 conference staffers. This time, no one opened a door for him. He stepped behind the unused microphone and switched it on. A low burst of static rolled through the speakers. Forks stopped moving. Phones lifted. My name is Ethan Cole, he said. I am not a CEO. I founded a community repair shop, and I came here hoping to keep 12 apprentices employed. The summit director reached for the control panel. Ethan placed his funding folder beside it, not blocking the man, only making the truth visible. Oil had darkened the edges of the pages despite Ethan's careful hands. No one invited me through that executive door because I lied. They saw a borrowed suit and decided what I must be. His voice did not rise. When I tried to explain, the room preferred the version that looked wealthier. Murmurs traveled beneath the amber lights. The banquet manager folded his arms, but Ethan continued. Claire Bennett owes me nothing. She did not create the mistake. She simply refused to treat me as less when the mistake was exposed. Claire's phone vibrated on the serving tray behind them. 5:47. Her partner's name glowed across the screen. Ethan turned toward her. Now they know. You can walk away without denying me, and your deal may still survive. For the first time that evening, he asked nothing for the shop, nothing for access, nothing for himself. He chose to surrender the protection of Claire's reputation rather than hide behind it. The summit director shut off the microphone. Silence settled beneath the chandeliers, thin and brittle. Claire crossed to the tray and answered the call on speaker. Tell me you've separated yourself from him, her partner said. Tell me the photograph was a misunderstanding. The photograph was a misunderstanding, Claire replied. Ethan's jaw tightened once, but standing beside him is not. A camera shutter snapped. Then another. Claire lifted Ethan's worn funding folder and faced the delegates who had mistaken fabric for authority. If your deal requires me to deny an honest man so powerful people can feel comfortable, she said into the dead microphone, withdraw it. Her partner's breathing hissed through the speaker. Claire, this is the largest commitment the fund has ever negotiated. Then put my decision in writing. She ended the call herself. The clock reached 5:49. No ultimatum remained for her to obey. She had answered it 11 minutes early. Ethan looked at the crooked knot made by a 9-year-old's hands, then at Claire, whose professional future now stood exposed beside his ruined proposal. The summit director gathered Ethan's papers and held them out. Your project is still excluded. Ethan accepted the folder. Claire did not touch his arm this time. Instead, she faced him under the white ballroom lights and asked quietly, "If the money never comes, what happens to the shop tomorrow morning?" The elevator bell sounded beyond the doors. Ethan's fingers closed around the stained pages. "Tomorrow," he said, "I tell 12 young people the truth." Cold air rushed through the revolving doors as the summit emptied into the harbor night, carrying the smell of rain and diesel from the waterfront. Behind the glass, champagne flutes chimed, and another round of applause rose for projects that still had a future. Ethan reached the curb with the stained folder beneath his arm. Claire followed, but the revolving door stopped between them when her phone vibrated. A message glowed across the screen, pending commitment withdrawn. Effective immediately. She read it once, silenced the phone, and stepped outside. "It's gone," she said. "The deal. The entire commitment. Call them back." No, the rain ticked against the steel awning. Ethan's borrowed charcoal suit had begun to darken at the shoulders, while Lily's crooked knot remained tight against his collar. For the first time that evening, there were no cameras close enough to reward appearances, no delegates waiting to misread a smile. Only the two of them and the cold blue light of the harbor. "You lost more than I asked anyone to risk," Ethan said. "You didn't ask. That doesn't make it right. It makes it mine." Claire opened her fund's banking application. Ethan caught the movement and closed his hand over the screen before she could authorize anything. "Don't. I can cover the shop for a year and teach 12 apprentices that dignity is something wealthy people purchase for us." His voice remained low, but the words struck harder than anger. Claire lowered the phone. She had chosen to remain beside him. Now he chose the boundary she could not cross for him. Across the street, a digital billboard changed images. Their photograph filled the wet pavement with white light. Claire holding Ethan's arm, both dressed like people untouched by ordinary bills. Beneath it, a financial news caption announced that her fund's largest pending deal had collapsed. A second alert arrived. Her partners had scheduled an emergency vote for 8 o'clock the next morning to remove her from investment authority. Claire slipped the phone into her coat. "What time do you speak to the apprentices?" 7:30. "Then your loss comes first." "No," Ethan said. "Tomorrow, you protect what you built." A taxi rolled toward the curb, tires whispering over black water. Claire opened the rear door, then paused as Ethan removed the summit badge from his borrowed lapel. Its adhesive tore with a dry rasp. He placed it inside the rejected folder rather than dropping it into the gutter. "Money could hide tonight," he said. "It couldn't repair it." Claire looked through the lobby glass at the summit director, who stood beneath the chandeliers watching them leave. Beside him, the banquet manager still held the incident report accusing Ethan of exploiting executive access. "Then we stopped trying to hide it," she said. Ethan gave the driver the address of his neighborhood repair shop. Claire climbed in after him before he could object, laid her phone face down between them, and made no attempt to recover the deal or defend her position. As the taxi pulled away, the ballroom lights slid across their faces like passing bars. At 7:30, 12 apprentices would learn that their funding was gone. 30 minutes later, Claire could lose the authority to help anyone again. And inside the summit, the people who had mistaken a borrowed suit for power still had no idea what kind of man they had just sent away. Fluorescent tubes hummed above the repair shop, their pale light trembling across dented tool chests, steel workbenches, and an engine suspended from a red hoist. The air carried cold motor oil, hot dust, and the faint sweetness of 12 paper cups lined beside a coffee maker. At 7:30, the apprentices rose when Ethan entered in Frank Mercer's charcoal suit, Lily's imperfect tie knot still resting crookedly beneath his collar. Claire stepped in beside him. "No cameras, no chandeliers, no borrowed assumptions." "Sit down," Ethan said. "Please." Work boots scraped concrete. A garage door rattled in the wind, and somewhere near the back, a socket rolled in a slow silver circle before falling flat. Ethan placed the summit folder on the workbench. We didn't get the funding. No one spoke. The program closes Friday, one apprentice asked. Not if I can prevent it. How? By giving up my share of the shop. Ethan opened the folder to a transfer agreement already marked with yellow tabs. He had not come to ask for sympathy. He had come prepared to surrender ownership so the building, equipment, and training contracts could be placed in a community trust, buying the apprentices time to finish their certifications. The suit had made strangers see an executive. The papers revealed something rarer. A man willing to become an employee in the shop he had built so 12 young people would not lose their future. Claire reached for the agreement, but Ethan covered it with one grease-scarred hand. No personal check. I know. No rescue. I heard you the first time. Her phone vibrated against the steel bench, sharp as a drill bit striking concrete. The emergency vote had begun without her. She turned the screen face down. Then one apprentice, Marcus, lifted a framed photograph from the office shelf. It showed Ethan years earlier beside the shop's first repaired school bus, surrounded by teenagers holding certificates. You trained all of them? Claire asked. 37. Marcus answered before Ethan could. 29 are working full-time. For open shops. 2 came back here to teach. Another apprentice slid a binder across the bench. Inside were audited placement records, reduced recidivism figures, signed employer commitments, and repair invoices for vehicles belonging to nurses, veterans, and families who had paid only for parts. Claire read 3 pages, then 5. The summit had treated Ethan's proposal as a plea from a poor mechanic. In her hands was proof that his shop had already produced stronger measurable returns than several polished programs funded inside that ballroom. Why wasn't this in your presentation? She asked. Ethan touched the crooked knot Lily had made. It was 3 minutes worth. Claire's phone vibrated again. This time she answered. Her business partner's voice came through cold and clipped. The vote is waiting. Return now. Separate yourself from Cole, and we may preserve your authority. Claire looked at the apprentices, then at the transfer papers beneath Ethan's hand. Send the board the coal shop records, she said. All of them. That is not an approved investment. No, Claire replied, pulling off her summit badge and placing it beside the grease-stained binder. It is evidence that our approval process failed. Silence settled beneath the fluorescent hum. Her partner warned that challenging the board could end her career before the night was over. Claire did not lower her voice. Then put me on the screen. She turned to Ethan. Come with me. Not as the man they imagined, and not as someone asking for charity. The apprentices watched as she reopened the ballroom livestream on her phone. Come as the founder they were too arrogant to hear. A laptop fan whined against the stillness as the boardroom feed opened on the repair shop wall. On screen, polished faces sat beneath warm recessed lights, while the shop smelled of cold steel, motor oil, and coffee burned hours ago. Ethan stepped into view wearing Frank Mercer's charcoal suit, its cuffs marked with grease and Lily's imperfect tie knot still resting beneath his collar. Claire remained beside the phone, but this time she did not speak for him. Mr. Cole, the board chair said, Ms. Bennett has submitted evidence outside established procedure. Then judge the work, Ethan replied. Not the procedure that kept you from seeing it. Your ownership transfer suggests financial instability. It proves 12 people matter more than my name on a deed. Paper shifted across distant microphones. The apprentices stood behind Ethan without moving. Marcus held the grease-stained binder against his chest, its cracked vinyl edge catching the white shop light. The board chair offered Ethan an expedited grant review, conditional on Claire withdrawing her challenge and accepting suspension while the fund investigated. It was a clean bargain. Save the shop, silence the woman who had stood beside him. Ethan looked at the transfer papers. Then he tore his signature page cleanly in half. No, Claire's partner leaned toward the camera. Think carefully. Those apprentices lose funding if you refuse. They already lost it when your system confused access with worth, Ethan said. I won't buy their future with her integrity. He placed the torn page on the workbench, then turned toward the 12 young faces. The trust still goes forward. My ownership ends tonight whether their money comes or not. The choice stripped him of the last thing he could have used as leverage. He would no longer own the shop, no longer control its future, and no longer accept a rescue designed to make Claire disappear. The laptop speakers crackled. Claire's business partner gave a thin sigh. Then your authority is revoked effective immediately, Claire. A notification chimed on her phone. Her access vanished from the fund's internal system before the screen finished refreshing. Claire removed the phone from its stand, but Ethan reached for it only to keep the call from dropping. For one quiet second, their hands met over the scratched metal case. You don't owe me this, he said. I know. You can still walk away. Claire looked directly into the boardroom camera. You mistook proximity for weakness. You mistook a borrowed suit for deception. And you mistook my silence for permission. Her thumb moved across the screen. Instead of ending the call, she transferred the complete repair shop record to every board member, then released her own written objection to the summit director and the fund's compliance committee. The file carried her name, her credentials, and a permanent timestamp. It could not be withdrawn. I resigned before you used my title to bury his work, she said. And I waive the severance that requires my silence. No one in the shop breathed loudly enough to disturb the hum of the heater. Ethan had surrendered ownership. Claire had surrendered power. Neither choice could be undone with money by morning. On the laptop, one board member removed his glasses. Another closed the summit report. The chair asked Ethan to remain available while an emergency independent vote was called, but Claire had already lowered the phone. Through the glass doors, headlights swept across the concrete lot, revealing the two of them reflected side by side. Then Marcus glanced at the summit live stream, still running on a second screen. The ballroom feed had not been muted. Every donor, executive, and official who had dismissed Ethan had just heard Claire resign, and they were rising from their seats. Cold air rushed through the glass doors when the first summit guests entered the repair shop, carrying the faint scent of rain and expensive cologne into the warmth of motor oil and scorched coffee. Behind them came donors, executives, the summit director, and finally the banquet manager, still clutching the report that accused Ethan of exploiting executive access. Their shoes scraped across the concrete. The 12 apprentices stood beside silent workbenches as Ethan faced the visitors in Frank Mercer's charcoal suit, Lily's imperfect knot still resting beneath his collar. Mr. Cole, the summit director began. The independent vote is complete. Is the shop approved? Not under the old process. 3 breaths passed. Fluorescent tubes buzzed overhead, painting every grease stain and worn tool without mercy. Then the director tore the exclusion notice in half. The board had approved a multi-year community investment, placed under independent oversight and protected from the summit officials who had denied Ethan a hearing. It was not charity. It was funding earned by 37 documented outcomes and 12 futures still waiting to be built. Ethan did not reach for the agreement immediately. The community trust owns the shop now, he said. Then the agreement will be with the trust, the director replied. And you'll be compensated to run what you built, if they elect you. Marcus looked toward the apprentices. One by one, 12 hands rose. Only then did Ethan accept the pen. The banquet manager stepped forward, paper trembling between his fingers. Before he could defend the report, the summit director took it, folded it once, and returned it. Ms. Ramirez's statement is attached. Your accusation is withdrawn, and your conduct is under review. No one laughed. No one whispered. The manager left beneath the same quiet in which Ethan had once been judged. Claire remained near the scarred work table, stripped of her title, but standing straighter than anyone who still possessed one. Her former partner approached with a reinstatement offer. Full authority restored, resignation erased, provided she returned alone and allowed the fund to present the reversal as internal reform. Claire read the letter beneath the hard white light. Then she placed it beside a rusted wrench. No, the word carried farther than a speech. I'll build something whose principles don't disappear when they become expensive. Ethan moved beside her, not as a man seeking rescue and not as the executive strangers had imagined. He offered his hand. I can't promise an easy road. Good, Claire said. I'm done investing in easy things. Outside, phones lifted as they emerged beneath the amber parking lot lamps. Reporters called them the mystery CEO and his wife again. This time, Ethan stopped. I'm not a CEO, he said. I run a community repair shop. A reporter pointed toward Claire. And is she your wife? Rain tapped softly against the awning. Claire looked at Ethan, giving him room to answer rather than borrowing an identity from strangers. He glanced at the crooked knot Lily had tied, then back at the woman who had chosen the cost of standing beside him before she knew what either of them would regain. No, he said, his hand still open between them. But I'd like the chance to ask her to keep walking with me. Claire placed her hand in his. She did not deny it, explain it, or hide behind misunderstanding. She simply smiled, and this time, the smile was not an assumption but a promise they had both chosen to keep.